control payments and expenses with the power of virtual cards. More at paywithextend.com.
WNYC is supported by the Vital Projects Fund, supporting the Museum of Modern Art, where the exhibition New Photography 2023 explores the work of 7 artists connected to Lagos, Nigeria. Learn more and book tickets at MoMA.org.
In a small Swiss town, not so long ago, one woman was denied citizenship for being annoying.
She's pain in the ass.
She's made like a fuss, like a little loud bird.
She's against tradition.
Bringing veganism into Switzerland.
She's anti-cowbell, anti-church bell.
She will tell us how to live, and that's not okay.
What do we give up to belong?
It's a declaration of war.
That's on the next Radio Lab. Tomorrow at noon on 93.9 FM and AM 820 WNYC.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. In the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby will talk about how the U.S. plans to supply Ukraine with controversial cluster munitions. We'll have that and more in the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered. Stay with us.
This is Marketplace. I'm Amy Scott. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is midway through a trip to China with the stated goal of finding areas of common economic ground at a time of heightened tensions between the two largest economies in the world. Also on that trip is our very own Kai Ryssdal. He's been traveling with Yellen's press pool, and we caught up with him in Beijing this morning. Well, it was nighttime for him. Hey, Kai.
Hi, Amy.
So what can you tell us about the Secretary's visit so far?
Well, so far, I think the key thing that the Secretary is trying to get across to the Chinese and also, honestly, to the world is that she and the Biden administration are really intent on making sure that the Chinese government understands that what they are looking for in the White House and at Treasury is not decoupling as the headlines would have it, but rather engagement and healthy competition. Fair competition is what the Secretary says. And look, it's a tricky hill that she has to climb here because tensions are very high and the relationship is at its lowest point in some years.
What kinds of meetings is she having? Are you seeing any signs of progress in that relationship?
Well, you know, it's interesting you mentioned progress because we got a background briefing from a senior Treasury official last night, I guess, after we got here. And he specifically said, we're not looking for any big breakthroughs. We want to establish a floor for this relationship, and we really want to make sure that the Chinese understand that when we take certain steps to strengthen our national security, it's not meant to gain an economic advantage over China. And what we are looking for here is for us to stay engaged and for the world's two biggest economies to have a dialogue. She's had meetings today with the American Chamber of Commerce. She had a meeting with Premier Li Qiang today. And she's got more meetings tomorrow. And I think the general through line is to American businesses, it's, look, we are here for you. We understand that there are some challenges doing business in China. And with the Chinese government, it is, let's keep talking and let's keep this relationship going.
You have spent quite a bit of time in China over the years. How does your visit now compare to the last time you were there?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I was thinking today of the last time I was actually in Beijing, and it was 2015. And, you know, I've been coming to China on and off for 30 years, personally and professionally. And the thing that always amazes me every time I come back, no matter how long it's been, is how fast the change is, the pace of change and the velocity with which this economy moves. I mean, there's a generation of young people now, who are 18, 19, 20 years old, who this is what they know. They know the Chanels and the luxury brands and the nice cars. And they now have some disposable income that they can spend on it. I was talking to Jennifer today, Jennifer Pack, our Shanghai correspondent, who came up to do a little walking through town with me today. And she said, yeah, that's absolutely right. And the ambition and the aspirational capitalism is what's driving this country.
Marketplace's Kai Ryssdal, traveling with the U.S. Treasury Secretary. We look forward to hearing more of your reporting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy. Talk to you soon.
One source of tension between the U.S. and China is chips, with each country trying to restrict the other's access to advanced semiconductors or the technology and materials to make them. Pulling back to look at the overall chip industry, a once severe shortage earlier in the pandemic has turned into a supply glut. The South Korean electronics company Samsung said this week it's expecting a big drop in quarterly profits, making it the latest chip maker to see a downturn in sales in recent months. The semiconductor industry supplies important components for smartphones, laptops, and cars, etc., and it's notoriously cyclical. But this latest bust may be nearing an end, as Marketplace's Henry Epp reports.
Consumers stuck at home buying electronics created a surge in demand for chips, and manufacturers responded, says Willie Shih, a professor of management practice at Harvard Business School.
Everybody built up a lot. They ordered a lot of chips. Inevitably, what happens is they overshoot the mark.
So chip makers produced enough to meet those big orders, but when demand dropped off, they were left holding the bag.
And now we're working off all that excess inventory. It's kind of a classic cyclical behavior in this business.
This particular downturn may be nearing an end for a few reasons. One, a handful of companies have seen surging interest in chips that power artificial intelligence systems.
The AI chip demand is going to be the leading indicator out of this glut.
Doug O'Loughlin writes a Substack on the chip industry called Fabricated Knowledge. Even outside of AI, he says chip makers have some hope for the second half of the year as people start to replace those phones and laptops they bought a few years ago, and consumers turn to back to school and holiday shopping.
The whole industry has optimism that things are going to get less bad.
So as the most recent vicious cycle fades into the industry's rear view, did they learn anything to avoid the next one? Well, they tried, but it's difficult to predict demand, says Stacy Raskin, a senior analyst at Bernstein Research.
You got to remember the semiconductors are at the back of the supply chain. There's a lot of stages between them making a part and you actually buying a product with that part in it. There's lots of different stages along that chain.
Raskin sums up an old saying by an industry leader. Semiconductor companies are like the caboose of a train. They can only guess if the engine is moving. I'm Henry Epp for Marketplace.
Next week, we'll get a read on how people are feeling about the U.S. economy with an early take on consumer sentiment from the University of Michigan. As of June, Americans were feeling more optimistic about the state of the economy and inflation, though many economists expect a slowdown in consumer spending thanks to higher interest rates and the return of federal student loan payments. To hear how one business is faring amidst the uncertainty, we checked in with Kristen Tallmeyer Bingham. She's owner of Dean Sweets in Portland, Maine.
The rest of the summer will get busier and busier. At least I hope we will. Since Mother's Day, we've been focusing on day-to-day sales, which, as the weather improves, is better and better. We've had some graduation orders and graduation gifts. We've also launched a new chocolate in mid-May called our Cherry Bourbon Bonbon, which is just as great as it sounds. Typically for us and for Maine in general, the busiest part of the summer is mid to late July and August. That's when we get large groups of families and children, a lot of parents dropping kids off at camp and spending a long weekend in Portland. Our website sales slowed down a little bit this time of year, but our walk-in traffic for our two stores definitely picks up. There are foodie tours that come through our stores every day, and that's a lot of fun. And there's just a lot more people and a lot more activity this time of year, especially as the summer progresses. Really does feel like consumer spending has been all over the place. We are having a good summer, but it feels like every day is different. You know, for one day we'll have great sales, and then the next day we'll have almost nothing, and then for a week it'll be fabulous, and we'll hit the numbers we need, and then the next week it drops back down again. Our second quarter this year was not as good as our second quarter last year, and not so bad that we really need to worry about it, but I hope we'll get our wonderful Maine summer and people will travel here and find us. There's a lot we can do now to build up our stock on items we sell all year and also holiday items. These are chocolates that are very shelf stable. that we can make now and be ready for the rush that happens in October, November, and December. So that's a really big focus for us in the summer months. I am hopeful. Right now, we just really need to stay prepared and watch how things go. But the uncertainties feel like they are all the more present.
That was Kristen Thalheimer Bingham at Dean Suites in Portland, Maine. This final note on the way out today, the AI revolution may have hit a speed bump. The Washington Post reports that ChatGPT saw a drop in traffic last month, the first since it launched in November. Mobile and desktop visits fell by almost 10% in June, and downloads of the mobile app have fallen too. Analysts say users may have soured on the many problems with generative chatbots, like misinformation and useless answers. Or maybe, the Post acknowledges, students using it to write papers just went on summer break.
Marketplace is supported by JLL. For 240 years, JLL has been committed to offering trusted and innovative solutions in leasing, management, investment strategies, and technology. JLL.com. See a brighter way.
Here's your moment of economic context. Average global temperatures set another unofficial record yesterday, according to the University of Maine's Climate Reanalyzer. It was the fourth day of record hot temperatures this week, which scientists attribute to a combination of a seasonal El Niño pattern in the Pacific Ocean and human-caused climate change from emissions of heat-trapping greenhouse gases. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reports U.S. oil production is on track for a record-breaking year. Our theme music was composed by B.J. Liederman. Marketplace's executive producer is Nancy Pargali. Donna Tam is the executive editor. Neil Scarborough is the vice president and general manager. And I'm Amy Scott. Have a good weekend. We'll be back on Monday. This is APM.